Thank you to everybody for your continued support on the show. I wanted to take the time to personally thank everyone that's listened to the show, and I hope you enjoyed today's episode. Until next time, peace. And we're back with another episode of the Clever Angle podcast. Today, I have a very special guest, one of my best friends, one of my groomsmen, my neighbor even. I have Patrick Patterson. He is a real estate agent and a property manager, and he's one of my best friends. Patrick, how are you doing?
Man, I'm doing good. How are you, bud?
I'm good, man. Did you like that intro?
I like the intro a lot. You're one of my best friends, man.
I appreciate that. And I don't say that lightly. As you get older, you start to realize that your pool of friends shrinks significantly. So I really appreciate the bond that we've been able to maintain over the time that we've known each other. So
I agree.
I'm excited to have you on because we are talking about one of my favorite subjects, which is real estate, property management, something that I've always been kind of curious about, the kind of the ins and the outs. And we get to talk about you, your upbringing, your opinion on college, the job market. We're going to get into all of that today. So, Patrick, let's just start off with what are some things that you've been up to, man? How's the family? How's your life? What's new with Patrick?
Family's good, man. Family's good. Got the 4-year-old who's about to turn 5. Got the cheer competitions. You know, our daughters are obviously on the same team, and so we get to do the cheer competitions often. And Courtney's in the midst of school, rocking it out. I'm in the midst of getting started on this being a real estate agent thing and still managing, you know, the properties we got. And so I'm just trying to navigate the new waters, man.
Absolutely. So I just got a quick question for you. We're both kind of in the same stage of life. Which one is more difficult in your opinion, becoming a father or marriage?
For me,
yeah, for you,
it was becoming a father.
Can you elaborate a little bit? You don't have to get anything too deep, but
no, it's good. It's good. My biological father was not the best father. He struggled a lot. And so I did not have a relationship with him. And so I never thought I would have kids or really wanted to have kids because of my fear of kind of recreating that. And so when we found out Courtney was pregnant, you know, it was a big mental obstacle for me to kind of get through to accept fatherhood and to accept that I can be a good father.
Well, Patrick, I don't know if you hear this often, but you are a heck of a father, a good husband, and you're a great friend, brother.
Yeah, I appreciate the gas, man. Thanks.
Hey, no problem, man. We are here to gas you up. We are here to talk about everything, Patrick Patterson. So, will you just give a brief introduction of who you are, what you do, and what we're kind of going to be talking about, which is your career?
My name is Patrick Patterson. Married with 1 kid, 29 years old, turning 30 this year. I am a property manager with my family company, Van Cannon Rentals, and I manage mostly commercial, but also residential property. We got about a little over 40 doors, I believe, and I just recently kind of started on this path of got my real estate license, and now I'm a real estate agent with Century 21 Portfolio here in Jonesboro, and been doing that for a couple months now. Got my first listing representing a buyer on some things, and I'm kind of rolling in that arena now too.
No, that's really cool, man. And like I said, real estate and investing and things like that is something that I've kind of got like a book club with some of my friends. So my buddy AK and my brother, and then you too, we'll throw you in there as well. We like to read books. We like to talk about them. You know, you and me both read Essentialism. And now there is another book that we're reading. I Will Teach You to Be Rich is the book that we're reading. So like every Monday, me and my brother and my friend AK will kind of discuss what's been going on in our week, what we're learning, and that sort of thing. So we usually do it Monday morning and kind of check in. So, what would you say is one of the things that you have been working on goal wise in 2024 so far?
I'm really trying to put in my time. For the last 4 years or so, I've been working hard with this education, kind of learning the ins and outs of real estate and kind of how to get involved in investing, managing property efficiently, getting good at that. Now I'm getting into the transactional side of real estate, and I'm really trying to get my experience in, get my reps in there, and so I can become a more well-rounded, real estate, just in the industry, not even a real estate agent, but just completely in the industry, be able to know it all, do it all.
When you say know it all, what else is there in the industry? What does all of that entail?
That really entails not just, the buying and selling real estate. That's like the transactional side of real estate.
Okay.
But then you got, running those properties, being able to fix those properties, being able to develop them. Like if you're just purchasing raw land, being able to develop it and put on, multifamily or put in a single family or put in commercial or, all the way up from dirt, raw land, leveling it, putting a building on it, putting people in it if you want to rent it out, selling it, fixing it. All that is kind of where I'm trying to get to, is being able to just completely, get all of it.
It's so interesting because I was kind of having this conversation earlier, and a lot of industries, a lot of things, a lot of businesses are multifaceted. So if you have a restaurant, for example, you were going to get the food from somewhere, but somebody else is going to do the landscaping. Someone else is going to maybe provide the plates that you use. Like there's all of these facets that come together to be able to have a restaurant or any type of business. So that's just interesting that real estate's the same way. So before we get into kind of your day to day, what you're doing, and I like to go back, I like to hear your story. So can you tell me a little bit about what it was like growing up, and was real estate even on your mind when you were like a kid, 15, 16 years old?
No. I wanted to be a police officer. My adopted dad was a police officer. He was a great one. He is a great one. And so that's all I really ever wanted to be.
So you wanted to be a police officer, and when did that kind of change? Like, did you ever become a police officer, or how did you get from that's what you wanted to be to kind of pursuing the property management and real estate side of things?
Yeah, so I did. I worked pretty hard and started off in dispatch and went to the jail, then worked my way up to transport, and then eventually on patrol. And I got to do a little bit of time on patrol, and I got to live that. And what changed was in 2019 when we found out, Courtney was pregnant with Carter. It was like I was saying, earlier in the podcast, it was a big mental leap and adjustment to come to terms with being a father. And at that time I started dealing with some little, stomach stuff too that I'd never really dealt with before. And so there was just like a totality of all these situations happening that kind of led to this, for lack of a better term, like kind of mental breakdown a little bit. Dealing with a lot of panic attacks, anxieties and stuff like that. And, so I ended up deciding that the best thing to do would be to leave that life behind me and focus on accepting becoming a parent and being a good parent and kind of finding a new identity.
How long were you in that career before you decided to switch?
Uh, 4 to 5 years, maybe. Yeah, 4 to 5 years. I started in dispatch in Texas and did that. And then when we moved back to Cabot, I started in the jail at Lonoke County and, made my way up to the transport side of things. And I did little time on the patrol side.
Yeah, and I really admire you for that because, there's a lot of people that have like this dream job, like when they're kids. And a lot of us don't really get to, it either changes or we don't get to do it. When I was in eighth grade, I wanted to be a starting point guard for the Detroit Pistons. Obviously, that didn't happen. So
Still time.
Yeah, yeah, there's still time. Um, so what was it like, man? What was it like wanting to do this, wanting to emulate like your dad? You know, for a lot of us, our dads are our first heroes. You know what I mean? So, what was it like when you got to be in law enforcement? Like, was it like a surreal moment? What did it feel like your dream job?
Yes, like broadly, yes. So I got to, luckily, I worked for the county, my dad worked for the city. And so I actually got to hang out with my dad quite a bit on some things. And that was that was like a good check off the box, is just being able to do some stuff with my dad. And it was, in terms of helping people. Like, that's all I've ever watched my dad do. That's ever all I've ever wanted to do, was just help people. And I enjoy that. And so being able to help people was awesome. But then, there's the other side of it where it's like there's some people that end up not being able to be helped. And then there's, you end up having to arrest some people, and you see that side of it too. And that kind of, it puts a damper on your opinion of society, I guess. And, if you're not careful, it can completely change your perspective on society.
Yeah, it's so cool because I didn't really get that. I didn't know that before, that there was some time that you got to be in uniform and get to do some things with your dad, and that's something that I've got to experience with my brother as well. That me and my brother and my dad have all worked for the same company for the last 5 or 6 years, so that's something that I never would have thought would have been on my bucket list, but now just being able to interact with them in a different way, because when you're growing up and your dad is in the house and over you, like there's just a certain type of relationship, and getting to see him in a different light, and getting to see him around his friends, and getting to have that mature relationship is something that I always treasure. So
And seeing him, like, I bet seeing, like, because I mean, getting to see you grow up, you look up to your dad and all of his friends, and then you find yourself, like, become, I guess you could say, like, that respected, like, almost a peer and a friend
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
absolutely. I mean, there's guys that I've legitimately known uh for 25 to 30 years, and they've always known me as like just like a little kid.
Little Tevin.
Exactly. So you said you kind of had to find a new identity. What did that process look like for you?
It looked rough. Like, especially at the time, I was dealing with a lot of, like, mental stuff. And so, there's this, like, phrase, like, retraining your brain and stuff like that. It was a lot of that. I started this program where I was pretty much locked in my office while my wife was pregnant for about 3 to 4 hours a day when I'd get off of work. And so spend most of the evening in my office, like, working on this program to try and, change my thought processes and kind of accept being a father. And, you know, then it led to, all right, the realization that we need to leave where we were living at the time and move to a different area, which would end up becoming Jonesboro. That was kind of more supportive. And so when we moved to Jonesboro, I started working at a factory at night.
Where did you work at?
Hydro.
Really?
Hydro was my first like job as soon as I got to Jonesboro. And Courtney was still pregnant. She was like 7 to 8 months pregnant, and she had to stay and finish her contract in Jacksonville. So she was at home alone in the house that we owned. 2 dogs, her being 7 months pregnant. I just sold everything to get ourselves, we had gotten ourselves into crazy debt from being young, and so sold everything to kind of take away that debt and just get a fresh start. And I moved here, lived with my family, and worked nights at Hydro. And
What all did you sell, and how long were you working at Hydro for?
I only worked at Hydro for maybe 3 to 6 months. And I sold couches, recliners, dressers, washer, dryer, everything. Washer, dryer came closer to the end when Courtney moved, but like there was no living room furniture. She pretty much just had a bed. And yeah, I sold everything else that we had besides, of course, Carter's, nursery stuff that we had building up, but everything else personal, I sold. And she's a saint for riding through that with me, because it was like, I mean, it was that time, that 9 months of her being pregnant, and then the 3 to 6 months after that was probably the darkest time of my life, I'd say, in terms of just like when, especially going through the mental stuff that I had, which hindsight 2020 ended up being great, but like working at Hydro, especially the midnight shift, I'm a very much a sunlight positive person. And then on top of that, I love talking to people, and you can't do that when you're working at Hydro at nights. You have to have your earbuds in. You're just doing your thing. And so it was a lot of time where I was just trapped with my own thoughts, which I hated at that time. I couldn't stand. And so it was necessary. Like, it was a necessary time that God put me in for a reason, because I needed to be trapped with my thoughts. I needed to be with my thoughts and be able to process things myself. But it was something I just couldn't stand. And so, yeah.
So what did it look like when Courtney finally got there and then you guys had Carter? What did that next chapter look like for you?
It was a crazy cool chapter. I'd gotten enough money to get us an apartment, and it was, she moved here. She was going to get induced on a Monday. She moved here that Saturday. And so that Saturday she moved here. On Monday, we had to drive all the way back to Little Rock to be at the hospital so she could give birth and get induced. And she gave birth, and by this time I'd already like kind of been in a much better mindset about being a father, so it was pure excitement and fear, the normal stuff that you're supposed to feel. And just when I saw her the first time, dude, that's when everything just changes. It's no longer a question mark. It's like you see your purpose right there, and everything else, nothing matters at that point.
Yeah, you really don't understand until you have kids how much they really change your life. They change your the things that you want to do. That they change the psychology of how you spend your money. They change how you see your wife. Like, man, like my wife went through this experience and was able to give birth to this perfect little human that is just an absolute joy and wonderful add to our lives and stuff. So yeah, I absolutely get it. Like, being a father is one of the most influential, magical times of my life. And, I've been blessed to have 2 little girls. So you give birth to Carter, you're in a better headspace. What is that looking like for work for you at this time?
So at that point, I kind of switched gears and started working for Ritter a little right before she moved down, and worked for Ritter Communications, which that was more kind of what I was used to. Like, I had my own work truck, and I was kind of running my routes and installing internet and cable, and that's, with law enforcement before that, and then I worked at AT&T before I did law enforcement in Texas. Like, just having that was my normal. And so I got to enjoy that. When Carter was born and Courtney was able to be with Carter, and we stayed in this little apartment that we had. And it was hard financially because I wasn't getting paid a ton of money.
Were you in Jonesboro? Or
yeah, I was in Brooklyn. I was in the Whitten Creek Apartments in Brooklyn, and working for Ritter, installing internet, and yeah, it was rough financially, but it was cool because it was me and Courtney the first time alone with our kid, and it was a surreal adjustment. I like a lot of Courtney's kind of is a badass. There's just no doubt about it. Excuse my language. To the staying up with the kid, letting me graciously letting me sleep so I could be up for work the next morning, and it was a cool time. I look back on it and it's very like flashing memories. I don't have very vivid memories of that time because it was such a transition time for us. It's heavy.
It's so interesting because I am a firm believer that like during that time when your kid's little and you're going through all the things for the first time, you're sleep deprived, they're crying, breastfeeding, all of these things, like you really just look up and then it's over.
Yeah.
You know
You
what I
go
mean?
from surviving, and the next thing you know, it's like you're conscious again, and it's like, okay, how long was I out for?
Exactly, exactly. It's just weird because I mean, time just passes by so differently as you get older, and then you really start to want it to slow down.
Yeah.
You really do, especially when it comes to your kids learning and doing things. Like my Ellery came home and she had homework today in kindergarten. I'm just like, we're helping our kid with homework in kindergarten right
Wild.
now. Yeah, I mean, it's a surreal thing to even think about because I mean, I still feel like a kid in a lot of aspects of my life, and still look to my parents for guidance for pretty much everything. So, um, you're moving to Jonesboro, like you're working at Ritter. Um, how when does this start to change from I'm just doing these jobs to kind of survive what I'm used to I want to find my passion. I want to find something that I want to do. Like, when does you going to school come into this?
So during that time, job wise, career wise, I was doing whatever got the bills paid and just focusing on my wife, my daughter, and like myself personally. So focusing on the home life, getting that healthy, getting my mental state healthy. And then once I felt like I was good there, that's when this opportunity opened up. Courtney was working at a school. This opportunity opened up for me to go and work there and have a more stable position in IT that was going to offer me a pretty big raise if I got my degree that they would let me work through while I was there. And it was a significant pay cut to do it. But my wife and my family were like, this is it. Like, I never thought in a million years I'd get my degree, and teachers would agree that and so when the opportunity presented itself, my family was like, you got to do it. You know, we'll support you. You can move in with us, bring your wife and your daughter, move in with us in our house, work on this, get your degree, and find your identity, find your passion, stick with it, and, you know, do what you do.
So when this is all happening, I'm sure there's like a flood of emotions that is going through you right now.
I believe it happened in 2 days, actually. I was at work, and it was right before Thanksgiving, and I'd gotten a phone call saying that they were going to offer me the job, and that they could only pay me this very little amount, but the possibility of getting double that once I got my degree. And I called my wife. She was like, that's hard. We can't do that. I called my aunt. She's like, that's an extremely hard thing to do. Let me call you back. I'd say 8 hours later, maybe she called me and she's like, look, here's the deal. We're going to offer you this opportunity. You can take it if you want. It's up to you. Courtney, Carter, you can come in here, move in with us, focus on your debt, focus on your job. You have to be in school. You have to get your degree, and get it together. I mean, and like, that's how supportive they were. It was just a matter of boom. As soon as the opportunity presented itself and it seemed like it had good future potential, my family kicked into gear.
What was that like? That conversation like between you and Courtney when this is happening? Because I'm picturing myself in the same situation, and I'm prideful to a fault, which I know is can be a detriment at times, but I don't know if I could mentally move myself in with family. I just have a hard time accepting help. So what was that like when you sat down with your wife and you had the conversation of this is what we're going to do? What did that look like?
It was a difficult one, but it's like we both knew in our stomachs that it was the right one. Me and Courtney at this point, we were used to just frequent change. We were moving every year. We were just used to just frequent instability, and I'm a big risk taker in general, so I kind of fly the seat of my pants. It was a task to kind of knock myself off that independency pedestal and admit that, truthfully, I failed. Being an adult from 18 to 22 or whatever it was when I moved in with them, during that time, I failed at being an independent adult. And if I wanted to not continue to fail, if I wanted to get better, I had to knock myself off of that pedestal, accept accountability, and kind of just relearn. Like I'd already luckily, I'd already done a lot of work on kind of breaking myself down with the whole mental stuff that I was going through, that it was easier for me to, like, outside looking in and be like, Patrick, you need this. This is unique. This is something that's this is something that's being presented to you. That's a good opportunity for you to continue to grow.
You keep making references to um, getting your mental stability right. What did that entail? Did you go to therapy or anything, or was it like a book or something you read, or like what was it that kind of pulled you out of that dark place?
So there was layers to it for sure, but there was like a Dennis Simsek is his name, and he used to be a professional tennis player. Had just and then he ended up suffering. He ended up having to deal with some pretty crazy performance anxiety, health anxiety stuff. Anyway, he ended up becoming like this, making this digital program that was very holistic, and that was kind of the program that I needed because my family history has a lot to do with prescription abuse, and so being on medicine was just not something for me mentally that I could do, and so I needed a more holistic approach. And so he offered that, and I dedicated myself to his program. His program was incredible. And then through that came therapy. Through that came books. My wife, Courtney, was an incredible support from day one. When I told her that I wanted to do this program, she was like, as long as you stick with it, go for it. And so, yeah, I've still got all the books, to this day that I still like to reread every once in a while.
Okay, so now you've made the decision. You're gonna go to school. How did you pick what you wanted to do, and did it matter what degree you got for the show?
Yeah, I think they wanted me to do, because it was an IT job. They wanted me to do something IT related, and they wanted me to be there forever. They were a tight knit group who had all been there for many, many years, and they were kind of letting this newbie come in and hoping that I would be there forever too. Unfortunately, I knew when I was getting in there, this was not forever for me. This was kind of a stepping stone. And so I took it as an opportunity when I got there to find the degree that I wanted to do, which ended up being business administration, and then just invest and focus on that.
How long were you at the IT job before you decided to move on to something else?
A year and a half, maybe 2. Yeah, maybe 2. It's like right when COVID started. I think the second semester of COVID is when I quit, maybe.
Okay, so just tell me about that. So you started this school journey into like originally hopes of getting more pay at this IT job. Obviously, it's 4 years to get a degree. You're about halfway through your degree at this point when you decide to leave that job. What did that look like? What did that last 2 years look like for you? You're still in school, and then what did your next adventure look like?
It looked good. I mean, honestly, by that time, by the 2 years in, it had switched from those general education, like where I messed up because I didn't pay attention much in high school, wasn't a great student. And so I had to relearn a lot of those things that you learn in high school the first 2 years. And then after that, it was all um, my good elective dependent. Like all the stuff that was like degree related. And that stuff lit a fire in me because it had everything to do with business and real estate. And it was easy to go to work and do my schoolwork because it was what I was wanting to do.
So where were you currently working at when you kind of got into that groove of, all right, school's starting to pay off. I'm learning the things that I want to learn. Where were you at in your career journey then?
So right when January 2020 is kind of when January 2020 is when I left the school district, and we had just started a retail store. And so having that business, starting that business off, running it is I was kind of taking all those things that I was learning in school and applying them either same day or a day later. And, it was really kind of just experience with education right off the bat.
So you're a non-traditional student at this point because obviously you're past 18. It's not like straight from high school to college. Did college live up to the hype for you? Like, I think when I was going into college, I had a preconceived notion of what it was going to be like, and I ended up coming out with a different perspective that I went in with. 2 years in, you kind of had a delayed experience. Like, what was that college experience like for you?
For me, it was hybrid. And so it was like sometimes it was on Zoom, sometimes it was just online. I think once or twice I went into a classroom, tutoring. I did in some classes and stuff like that. And so it was like the one thing that I missed out of the traditional education that, everybody typically gets is just the camaraderie, the networking that you get, the friendships that you gain. I didn't get that. I got a lot of the retention of knowledge. That was the cool part. That was kind of the takeaway, is because I was working in business at the time. Whenever I'd learn something, like I said, I'd apply it pretty quickly. And then once you apply something right after you learn it, it's retained in there. And so it was good for me. But then there's like that 23-year-old young man, and it's like, I'm in college. I'm supposed to be, even though I was a little older, it was like that young man in me fighting, like, dude, you're supposed to be having some fun. But really, I was grown, married with a kid. So, had to kind of put all that to the side.
Yeah, absolutely. So at this point, did you know you wanted to do real estate then?
Yeah. And I knew, as soon as I started my real estate degree, um, I had a class on like appraisal and investing and stuff like that. And that's when it clicked, because I'd gotten into the bigger pocket stuff some years before when I first gotten into police, because of being a police officer, they don't pay you very much at all. And so you always have to have some kind of side gig. And so, that was kind of what I was looking at towards my side gig, but it was kind of one of those things that, maybe I will, maybe I won't ever achieve it. And then when I started my degree program and I took that class, I was like, oh, I can do this. I can do this. And I think I can be kind of good at it if I really just like put my time into it. Cause I did have I have a love and a knack for people. And I also feel confident in my ability to understand real estate.
So at this point, did you still want it to be a side gig, or is this something that you ever planned on doing full time? And the reason I ask that is because if it was going to be a side gig for you, explain to me why you just went ahead and got the 4 year degree, because you don't have to have a degree to be an agent, right?
No, yeah, no, you don't. You don't have to have a degree to invest or be an agent or anything like that. Finishing the degree came from this inner fire. Not many people in my family, especially in my direct family, my immediate family, they didn't have their bachelor's degrees. I became the first. That was a big motivator. Then you had, like you were talking about earlier, that pride that it's in you. Most of my friends in high school, my teachers in high school, none of them believed I would ever get a college degree, for good reason. And so that was a big motivator for me to finish, because I knew I could finish at this point. When I was 2 years in, I was like, oh, I can finish this. And so that was a big motivator for me to just stay, finish it, and get some good information out of it. And I did.
Okay, so take me to the moment when you graduate college. What's that like for you, and what are you thinking is your next chapter at that point?
It was awesome. And at that point, we'd already kind of sold our business that we had at the time. And I started in the transition from selling that business to going to managing properties. I'd kind of dipped my toe in managing my family's properties and helping them get it more efficient, I guess you could say.
Yeah, like streamlining some of the
Yeah.
processes and stuff.
Yes. And I did pretty well with that. And so it came down to when we were selling the business, like what was I going to do next? And Matt, who's my uncle, he he gave me the opportunity that was like, yeah, you can help me manage these things, but you also are going to have to learn how to, put in the work to maintain these things, because it's not just, passive real estate. Like they like to say, passive income is the big hot word. But if you want to make the most money and you want to get the biggest bang for your buck, you got to put the work in, and you be very active instead of passive. And so he was able, because I didn't really have any real skills. I didn't have any, couldn't read a tape measure, do anything like that. And he was like, you can do all the cool, smart stuff for, managing. He goes, but you also need to learn this, and I can teach you this. And so we kind of were some good give and take on that. I would teach him, help him with the managing and teaching him the managing, and he would help me learning the technical aspect of building a house, remodeling a house, commercial properties, codes, all that stuff.
Yeah, so the main reason we do this podcast is to help people find work that they love through the stories of others. So this is a question that I have for you. Somebody out there that wants to do something similar to you, do you feel like that you got more experience out here in the field working with Matt or through your degree program? And if they could only choose one, the experience or the degree, which one would you say that would be better suited for doing real estate / property management?
Experience, especially our generation. Our generation has kind of been, because we are known, like they kind of labeled us when we were young as millennials as being lazy, and because we're the technology age, they fed us this lie that comfort and you can have other people do all this stuff for you. That experience teaches you, it kind of puts the power back in your hands and makes you realize that, oh, I can do this. I don't have to hire somebody to do this. It's not that difficult, and it's actually quite fulfilling. Like, it really is a fulfilling thing whenever you do start a project and then you finish that project yourself.
No, absolutely. I think a lot more of the programs should be hands-on based, because I think that getting that experience out in the real world is something that all employers are craving. So I'm coming out of a institution for 4 years where I've put so much work and effort into, and then I just still don't have what the employers want. You know what I mean? I got out of college and had a degree, and I had all of this hope and, joy in my eyes, thinking that it was going to be an easy transition into the workplace. And then I was surprised that it wasn't like that. And that brings me back to the reason why I do this, is to get some information out there about what is the best way to do these things. Because you're absolutely right about us being millennials. We're the generation that is in between two massive eras. We were old enough to have seen life before DVR, like cable, TV guide channel, before texting. But now we're in this super information at your fingertips, supercomputer, super iPhone type era, where a lot of the things that the college was asking, like, hey, come here and learn this. You can learn on YouTube from 100 different professionals. So to me, the institutions are losing their credibility, because I think that online learning is being so accessible. It's very cool to see your take on, there's no substitute for getting that on-hands experience.
Yeah. And the thing is like that, I see why people want to just do that route and without the work, like, obviously, because it's not as difficult. But like that work, that hard work that you do put into it, and the cuts and the all that stuff, man, like I said, it's so fulfilling. I'm just scratching the surface. That's the thing, is I'm still learning so much. I've got so much more to learn. I'm by no means an expert at it. But I don't know, every time I complete something, I'm just more motivated to keep going and doing more and learning more.
Yeah, I mean, there's some things that are becoming a lost art. Like today, I was telling you earlier on the phone that one of my goals for 2024 is I want to learn how to cook more. So I went to the grocery store. I bought some chicken thighs. I went to my mom's house, It's like, hey, mom, I need you to teach me how to cook fried chicken.
How did those go?
Dude, it was awesome. I've got pictures and all kinds of stuff. I surprised Destiny and the girls with fried chicken, macaroni and cheese,
How did you
hot
miss?
sauce.
You didn't do mashed potatoes?
I didn't do mashed
That's
potatoes.
a miss.
It is a miss, but
Mashed potatoes goes with fried chicken
yeah,
at all
it
times,
does. Like so, my like, I,
especially with a roll. What are you gonna dip the roll in if
dude.
it's just
So
mac and
so
cheese?
I had sweet rice too. I don't know if you ever had sweet rice, but
Not with fried chicken.
well, I'm telling you, bro, it might be a Southern black thing, but we had sweet rice, rolls, macaroni and cheese, fried chicken, and I cooked all this for my family, and they were super surprised, and it was fulfilling. Like you said, it was super fulfilling to be able to say, man, I took this from something that was unedible to something that was really great, and it's something that I'm just going to continue to work on in 2024. So let's get to the career that you're doing now. We've done the origin story, so let's talk about what does a typical day in the life of you look like right now.
We're in a slower period on the management side right now. Luckily, we've done enough proactive stuff that I'm just taking care of, like, if it rains a lot and we spring a leak or something like that, I'm taking care of that, and just kind of prepping for the summer when we start kind of working on remodeling some of the existing places that we have. And I'm just taking this time to like learn and just soak in everything real estate agent wise. And so my day, pretty much, I wake up about 7 o'clock.
10:30.
No, stop that.
Tell the people the
No,
truth.
I'm telling the
Patrick.
people the
Tell the
truth.
people
I'm
the
telling
truth.
the people the truth. I wake up at
8
7
o'clock.
a.m. with my wife,
Yeah.
who's getting up. I get her set up, get her sent off. I'm usually at my computer. In this season that I'm in right now, I'm at my computer at 8 a.m. I'm checking at the MLS, checking out checking my emails, trying to get ahead of any kind of real estate agent stuff that I have. Then I write my to-do list for the day, and I start on property management stuff because I like to get that knocked out of the way in the morning so I can work on agent stuff in the afternoon.
What's the most difficult thing about managing properties?
People. People is the most rewarding and most difficult thing about it, because it's difficult because you have a lot of different personalities, and it's understandable because especially because the majority of ours is commercial. This is their livelihoods. So this is how they support their family, everything. And so if there's a lease coming up and there's a rent increase or something like that, like, it's a hard conversation. It's a hard conversation to have, and though you deal with a lot of difficult personalities, but it's also rewarding because you can help these people. And typically, we're under your market rent in Jonesboro, and so we actually have quite a few happy tenants because we're able to give them affordable rent and allow them to like have their business and be a successful business, not just a break-even business.
What are some of the trends in the market that you're seeing in 2024? If someone was looking to buy or sell a house right now, is it a good time or no?
It's getting better. I do believe it's getting better, and it's going to continue to get a little bit better. I don't think they're going to see, we're not going to see, of course, your 2% or your 3% probably again for a very, very long time.
I got mine. That's all.
Yeah, that's it. That's it. But you're going to see, you're going to see 6s, you're going to see 5s. You might see high 4s, maybe. We'll see how that goes. But, it's definitely looking better. I think by the summertime, when things start warming up, I think the market's going to heat up a lot more. And so that'll just be good for everybody. That'll be good for agents. That'll be good for buyers. That'll be good for sellers.
Okay, coming from the perspective of a potential buyer, if I'm somebody, let's say I'm already a homeowner, I've got $10K that I want to do with, like, I want to make a transaction. Is that enough to get started on getting a property of some sort? Like, is it enough to get a plot of land? Is that enough for a down payment? Like, what would somebody that is in the interest of buying a property?
Income producing or?
Yeah, so let's say I make $100K.
Yeah.
I got $10K cash.
Yeah.
what can I get with that? Like what are some steps that you would get me if I wanted to get a plot of land for, let's say, 3 acres? Like, what are the steps that you would say, Devin, this is my advice to you, and this is how you're gonna get there.
First thing I'm hooking you up with is a slick lender, because technically I can't give financial advice because I'm just a real estate agent. So I get you hooked up with a lender who can hook you up with, and I get you with a nice lender too.
Yeah, but I mean, you said you wanted to know it all. So like,
Bro.
what would it take for you to become a lender? Like,
You
and
need a lot of banking experience, like understanding loans, and like don't get me wrong, I understand.
is that something that you would consider wanting to do? Like, is that under the umbrella of learning it all to you?
For sure. I probably won't ever work at a bank and become a mortgage officer or anything like that, but I think I'm going to, in this transactional like season that I'm in, learning the being a real estate agent, you work very closely with lenders. Very closely. So learning the ins and outs of the loan, learning the creative ways of writing a loan and, working a deal. That's the stuff that I'm going to be learning.
Yeah. So going back to my question, what is some advice? So you'd hook me up with a lender.
Yeah.
And have you done that before? Like, if someone come to you with advice and you've hooked them up with the lender, and what does it look like after that as far as getting a property? Because you are an agent, right? So
Yeah.
like, if I came to you and said, "Hey, Patrick, this is what I want," obviously, okay, the lending part. But what would it look like if I wanted to get 3 acres? Like, would you just show me different properties around town? Like,
Yeah.
what's the process like? Because I've bought a house, obviously, so I've had a real estate agent before, a family friend here in town. But what would that process look like?
So lender's going to help you find out what you can afford.
Yeah.
Lender, once we know what you can afford, what loan they can hook you up with, we're going to start looking at properties. We're going to start looking at land, and we're going to start talking to you about, all right, what do you want to do with this property? Because you're talking raw land. So what do you want to turn it into? You want to build a home there? Are you wanting to put a mini mall? And then once we kind of get your goal, we're going to start looking at locations. And then when we start looking at locations, we're going to look at the quality of land. Does this land need to be developed? Does this land need to be leveled? Does it already have utilities? Does it already have, access to all that stuff?
Yeah, I mean, I think for me, my personal goal is I would want to put some kind of small, like, house or something on it. But I want to, this might sound dumb, but like, I want like fruit trees, or like I wanted some kind of like,
Bro, that does not sound dumb at all.
I mean, that's just,
We are in the generation where all we eat is plastic.
exactly
Everything we eat has plastic
Dude,
in it.
I'm telling you, like, the more I do research and the more that I research food and things like that, the more I want to be able to grow organic foods that I know that nothing's been touched on it. It's not been sprayed with all kinds of stuff. Like, I want nature's candy. So like apple trees and whatever other fruits and vegetables I could muster up is something that I would want to put on there. So that's like my goal. Like, that's just my personal goal. Obviously, if I had like a dream thing that I could do with a property, I think long term I would want to have some kind of event venue, like in the next 10 to 15 years. Like, that's a goal of mine.
That'd be sick for you, honestly.
Yeah. I know, like, being in the industry and seeing the things that do work and the things that don't work, I'm like, man, I could do that better. You know what I mean? So maybe I get a lender on the podcast and I just see like what the steps are to try to get to being able to get something like that.
I got you.
Okay.
I got the dude for you right off the bat.
Yeah.
My boy Pedro.
Yeah. Tell Pedro this is my campaign to get Pedro on the podcast. I want to talk, and that's one cool thing about doing this is that you get to talk to a lot of people from a lot of different walks of life. And not only am I being able to provide value to a lot of different people that may want to do these jobs, I'm answering my own questions that I might be curious about. Like, I'm legitimately curious how I'm going to make these goals of mine come true. And just like making that fried chicken, dude, I'm just setting the goal, I'm accomplishing it, and I'm moving on to the next one.
That's it, dude. And honestly, I'm real bummed out I didn't get to try the fried chicken, though.
Dude, I promise you, I've got pictures of me like preparing and everything. I still got. The girls were super happy with it, so it's one
Did
of those
they eat
things.
it?
Absolutely.
Hey,
Yeah.
that's what's up.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
It's hard to get kids to eat anything.
It is, but I knew it was something that they would be down for because it's something they always eat at my parents' house. And it was a way for and my mom to be able to bond. I'm learning a new skill and I'm making sure that I'm not taking any of these moments in my 30s that I'm having with my healthy parents for granted.
You know what's weird is I feel like these generations, like kind of ours and especially this next generation stuff, like they're starting to walk backwards in time. I feel like everybody's starting to kind of transition. Like we miss the authenticity, we miss the life away from technology.
Yeah.
We miss like being like compounding. Being on family compounds is a growing thing. It's a growing trend now. It's even something that I'm interested in. And no matter how I ever feel about Jonesboro, which I love Jonesboro, but if I was to hate Jonesboro, I don't think I'd ever leave because my people, my family, are here. And I just always want to be around that village. And I want my daughter to always be around that village.
One thing I always tell people when they're getting ready to, like, oh, I want to do this or I want to do that. I'm like, dude, you can travel to anywhere you want in the world, but there's only going to be one place that you consider home. And I like being home, man. I like being around my people. I like uh, growing my village. I like my friends and things like that. And we can go on a trip together, but ultimately, like I want to be home. And the cool thing about podcasting is like I can get my message out to everybody in the world, and I can be wherever I need to be doing it. So it's a cool thing for sure. But yeah, absolutely. Tell Pedro that I need to get him on the.
I'll send him a text right now.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
as soon as we get off here, I'll send him a text.
Yeah, for sure. So, Patrick, is there anything else that you want the listeners to know about you, your career, before we let you go here?
Yeah, if you're interested in buying or selling a home or anything, holler at me. I'm new, and but I've got enough education and learning some more experience in terms of how a home is supposed to be built and looked that I could be a really useful asset. And so holler at me and let me help you.
Yeah, so the last thing we like to do is like to end all of our episodes with this is the roadmap. This is if you want to do something like Patrick is doing or something similar. Patrick, will you give us your most efficient way to become a real estate agent and or a property manager?
Ooh, most efficient way to become a real estate agent or a property manager.
Yeah, we want to get it out there to where okay, there's a lot of different ways to do this.
Yeah.
But this is the way that I would do it if I could do it again.
Honestly, if you want to become a real estate agent, the first thing you do is like you find a real estate agent. A lot of these guys will get you in touch with their brokerage. Their brokerages sometimes offer like plans to kind of get you through the schooling because you have to take like 60 hours or something like that. And you can do that even online now through the CE shop and stuff. And that's how I did it at least. And then you take your test and boom, you're a real estate agent. And then you get to be with a brokerage and learn and do all that. Becoming a property manager, I kind of had a loophole because my family, it's their properties. And so legally I can manage their properties. But if you're wanting to manage other people's properties, you have to be a part of a brokerage or, and, but if you want to learn how to manage those properties, get into construction, get into learning even the smallest things. Like you could even start off at framing. You go to any contractor around a job site, they're probably looking for somebody looking for good work. And so get some experience learning, how that's supposed to be done. Start reading books. Bigger Pockets is a big place that I go to for reading books on kind of learning how a deal's supposed to be done, types of deals that can be done, learn people, de-escalation, all that good stuff. Learn negotiation. And, just being around real estate agents, being around construction, all that stuff will kind of help lead you and prepare you for all that.
No, I think that's really good advice, and that's something that didn't even think of as far as the construction, learning the skills that you're going to need to be able to manage those properties. It's going to set you up for being in that role when the opportunity does present itself.
Yeah. Now, remember real quick, just to be because you got your normal property managers. They're not like me. Normal property managers don't usually get hands on. They hire maintenance workers. I do it all, and so that's kind of the. I'm sure there's others out there that can do it all, but so I may not be giving the best advice. That's just the advice that that would make sense for me, because in my opinion, I value a manager who's gonna understand how to do it all.
And that's the thing, man. Everybody has a unique journey and has a unique perspective that they can give. And this is yours to somebody that is inspired by your story to kind of get into the field that you're doing. Patrick, I appreciate you being on here, man. Seriously, every time that we get to sit down and chop it up, it is a blessing, and I really appreciate the conversations that we get to have.
Man, I appreciate you. I appreciate you letting me come on here and talk about nonsense that I don't know. And I appreciate your friendship, brother.
No problem, brother. Guys, I hope you guys have enjoyed the episode with Patrick Patterson today. He inspired me, as he always does, and I hope he inspired you as well. So if you guys would be inclined, just follow us on social media, subscribe to wherever you get podcasts, and we will be back next Thursday with a brand new episode. Until next time, peace.
Peace.